My Gypsy Family. Chapter 1, Respect and Family Legacy. I remember my grandfather, Bryce Reed, standing at the edge of the camp with his hands behind his back, quiet as stone. Men argued near the vans, voices sharp, the kind that meant things could turn ugly. Nobody asked him to step in, he did it because it was time. When he spoke, it wasn't loud. It never had to be. The arguing stopped anyway. That was how respect worked with him, not given, not taken, just known. Bryce Reed had fought every traveller in Scotland once upon a time, or so the stories went. When he was younger, he never backed down, no matter who stood outside. But by the time I knew him, the fighting was behind him. Fairness was what people remembered. If you were wrong, he'd tell you. If you were right, he'd stand with you. It didn't matter who you were. He moved all over Scotland in his life, from Skye to Aberdeenshire, never staying too long unless work was good. Houses when he had to, bow tents when he could, caravans when that was all there was. The road was never just one road. It was pearl fishing one season, picking wilks the next, scrapping, scudding, hair coursing, garden work, berries and tatties when they were ready. Whatever kept food on the table. Whatever kept his 7 children fed. People like to talk about fighting when they talk about travellers, but they don't talk enough about work. My grandfather was a man of all trades because he had no choice. Survival makes you skilled. Pride makes you careful. He taught his sons that if you had hands, you used them, and if you had a name, you protected it. My father was the 6th child. Wild when he was young, like all his brothers. Wherever they went, they ran the place or tried to. Not because they wanted trouble, but because trouble followed names like ours whether we invited it or not. That was the family I was born into, before houses, before settling, before anyone told us who we were allowed to be, but we had no choice in the matter. Chapter 2, Purpose and Loyalty. My mother's father was born John Ripley but carried his mother's name instead, MacDonald. That was a choice made early, and it followed him everywhere. He was raised in a bow tent with his mother, moving across England and into Scotland, never staying long enough for the ground to soften under their feet. Life on the road was all he knew, and so was being tested. People sometimes came looking to see if the stories about his family were true, but often it didn't matter. He was a traveller, and that alone could make trouble. They mentioned his father, Mark the Ripper, Ripley, a bare-knuckle fighter known beyond the camps. People spoke his name alongside Bartley Gorman, as if it were something you measured yourself against. My grandfather never asked for that weight, but it was handed to him anyway. He learned early that purpose mattered more than reputation. Fighting came whether he wanted it or not, but it never defined him the way people expected. What defined him was loyalty, first to his mother, then to the family he would build for himself. When he and his mother moved to Scotland permanently, the road didn't leave him. It just narrowed. That was where he met Elsie Reed. Together they had 4 children. For them, he did what many men before him swore they never would. He took a house in Kirkcaldy, 4 walls instead of canvas. He was a loving man, fierce when he had to be, gentle when it mattered. He would lift you without words and make you feel safe without ever explaining why. Whatever the world tested him with, his purpose was always the same: protect what's yours. Chapter 3, The Pub Fight. When he was 19 or 20, he and his good friend Hammy went into a pub in London. A biker gang was already there, big men, leather, loud. One of them started on Hammy, crowding him, talking too close. My grandfather stepped in, hands up, voice calm. He told them there was no need. He tried to de-escalate. It didn't work. The room tightened, chairs scraped. Someone laughed the wrong way. The first biker stepped forward like he wanted to prove something. My granda didn't wait. 2 punches, fast as lightning, and the man went down before anyone else moved. Another came running in from the side. He caught him, turned him, and threw him clean through the window. Glass everywhere, tables broken, blood on the floor, nobody standing who meant trouble. They didn't stay, they left before the sirens arrived, back into the night, breathing hard, untouched. Trouble came looking for him, not because of his name, but because he was a traveller in places that didn't want one. He didn't chase it, but he never ran. His purpose was always the same: protect what's yours. He carried that purpose to the end. On 4th March 2022, he passed away at only 55. He would have been 59 this year, but the lessons, the love, and the stories remain. Chapter 4, Life Without Moving. Now that my grandparents are older, they don't travel as much. They live in a house in Murray, surrounded by grandkids and great-grandkids. Their legacy is everywhere in the stories we tell, the songs we remember, the roads we once walked. I went to school, then high school. So did my sisters, brothers, and most of my cousins. But there are still many cousins who haven't had that chance yet. Things are changing. There aren't as many places to pitch a bow tent or park a caravan. Councils close sites, and we're told to move before we've even settled. The roads feel smaller, the camps fewer, and the freedom that once came naturally feels harder to hold onto. When I was in high school, I got bullied. They called me names pikey jipo inbred, words meant to cut to make me small. I wouldn't stand for it. I'd lose my temper and fight back. Every time I ended up looking like the bad one, but that wasn't the truth. It was just the way we were brought up. If someone laughed at you or tried to make a fool of you, you stood up, always. It wasn't about wanting trouble. It was about respect. About knowing that if you let people push you around because of who you are, they'll keep doing it. School wasn't the road and it wasn't the camp. It was something else entirely. But the lessons of the road came with me anyway. Loyalty, pride, and standing my ground. Chapter 5. The Roads We Knew. When I was 6 or 7, I would go scrapping with my granda Bryce. Summer days were long, golden and alive with noise, birds, vans, and the chatter of the camp. He taught me how to ask for scrap metal, showing me which pieces were valuable and how to talk to the men who owned it without causing trouble. Sometimes scrapping wasn't just work, it was an adventure. We would find old dumps with forgotten treasure. Once in Aberdeenshire we struck gold, 14 car batteries, 3 alloy wheels and 5 heavy bags of copper. The rush was incredible. We laughed, shouted, and carried it all back to the van. It felt like winning a treasure hunt, and it wasn't just the scrap, it was the thrill of discovery, the freedom, and doing it together. Now there's nothing like that anymore. The dumps are gone, the roads are fewer, and the excitement of small victories is something I only remember. Sometimes we would get garden jobs instead, digging, planting, and cutting. The sun would burn hot on our backs, and he'd tease me when I got impatient, reminding me that good work always took time. Chapter 6. Wilks and Farm Work. As summer and winter came and went, we would spend our days picking wilks berries on farms. It wasn't just a chore, it was a way to earn a little money, help the family, and learn how to work hard from a young age. My granda Bryce would lead the way, showing me which rows to pick first, how to handle the berries without crushing them, and how to keep a steady pace. Sometimes we would travel to different farms, posting flyers for garden work or offering help wherever someone needed it. It was always about trying something, working together, and making the day count. Each of us knew our role, whether it was bending low to pick the berries, carrying baskets back to the van, or keeping an eye on the weather. Every job had a lesson hidden in it. Picking berries taught patience and care. Garden work taught strength and pride. And through it all, we learned about teamwork, teasing each other, and laughing at mistakes, making even the hardest days lighter. Even now, I remember those days clearly. The smell of ripe berries, the soft earth beneath my hands, the feeling of accomplishment when the work was done. It wasn't just about money. It was about family, survival, and the lessons that life on the road had taught us. Chapter 7. Bow Tent Evenings. In the evenings, my granda would set up a beautiful bow tent with a fire glowing in the middle. Smoke curled gently through the funnel. I would sit close to the warmth, listening to stories of when he was younger, his father teaching him to pearl fish, his brothers and sisters running through fields, hare coursing, hunting, and the freedom of life on the road. He described summers that stretched endlessly, the thrill of dogs chasing a hare, the quiet patience of fishing, and the satisfaction of hard work. Now none of that is allowed. Listening to him, I feel awe and sadness. I wish I could have done it all, felt the river's cold water on my hands, the rush of the hunt, the smell of fire in the tent, but those days are gone. It's illegal, and the world has changed so much in 60 years. Chapter 8. Life on the Move. I remember all the times we moved from place to place, each new stop bringing a mix of work, adventure, and laughter. Sky was always special, the long days filled with picking wilks, fishing in the cool, clear waters, and simply being free. Every camp was a little community. Old friends and family would gather around the fire at night, talking about old times and sharing what they'd done since we last saw them. Stories were swapped, laughter echoed across the fields, and sometimes the fire burned late into the night while the sky turned dark and the stars came out. During the day, it was all about enjoying life, fishing by the river, racing through the fields, playing games with cousins, or helping wherever needed. No day was the same, but every day was full. Then, before you knew it, it was time to move again. Packing up the vans and bow tents, saying goodbye to friends and heading to the next place. It didn't feel like leaving, it felt like life itself, always moving, always discovering, always together. Chapter 9. Lost Adventures. There are adventures I never got to have. Pearl fishing, hare coursing, hunting, all the things my granda Bryce and my relatives did when they were my age. By the time I was born, many of these traditions had been banned. The rivers I longed to fish in, the fields where hares once ran, the forests where hunts used to take place, all closed off, all gone. It's frustrating, and sometimes it makes me feel sad. I can hear my granda describing the thrill of pearl fishing, the patience it took to find the right shells, the joy of working with family to catch enough to sell or trade. He would talk about hare coursing and hunting with a sparkle in his eye, telling stories of races across fields, dogs sprinting, wind in their hair. I could see it all in my mind, but I could never touch it, never feel it myself. Instead, I listened. I learned from his stories, from the rhythm of his words and the memories he carried. The adventures of the past became my adventures in imagination. I felt the excitement of the river, the thrill of the hunt, the camaraderie of family working together, all from sitting by the fire, watching him talk. It's a strange mix of pride and sadness. Pride that my family did these things, that we have these traditions, that our history is rich and alive in our stories. Sadness that I can't claim these experiences as my own, that the world has changed too much for me to walk the same paths. But even in that loss, there's a lesson. The stories themselves carry the spirit of the road. They teach resilience, patience, and respect for a way of life that can't be fully erased. I may not have pearl fished, I may not have run across the fields with the dogs, but I carry that knowledge, that longing, that connection in my heart, and that in its own way keeps the adventure alive. Chapter 10: Modern Challenges. Life isn't the same as it was for my grandparents. The road has changed, the camps are fewer, and the freedom we once had feels smaller. Councils have closed many sites, and we're often told to move before we've even settled. Places that were once familiar, where my family lived, worked, and laughed, are now gone or off limits. It's not just inconvenient, it feels like a part of our history has been erased. Even the simple act of traveling has become complicated. Permissions, rules, and regulations decide where we can stay, how long we can be there, and sometimes even who can join us. My granda Bryce would have never imagined this. Back then, the road was endless, and camps could appear wherever we needed them. Now, every stop feels temporary, like you're always walking on someone else's terms. The younger generation faces a different kind of challenge. Some of my cousins haven't had the chance to go to school or high school, not because they don't want to, but because life on the road doesn't always fit into the system. Those who do go face prejudice, bullying, and misunderstanding, the same experiences I had, but now complicated by a world that doesn't always respect our traditions. It's frustrating, watching a way of life that my grandparents built slowly shrink. Pearl fishing, hair coursing, hunting, the things that shaped their childhood, are illegal or impossible. Even the freedom to travel from camp to camp is restricted. Sometimes it feels like the world is moving too fast, leaving us behind, squeezing the roads we once knew into a fraction of what they were. And yet, even in these challenges, there's resilience. Families stick together, traditions survive in stories, in music, in the skills that are passed down. We find ways to adapt, to keep moving, to make the most of what we have. Life may be harder, but the lessons of the road, loyalty, pride, respect, and the importance of family are as strong as ever. Modern life is not easy for travelers, but it has also taught me something my granda always knew. The road is more than a place. It's a way of thinking, a way of living, and a part of who we are. Even when the roads shrink, the heart of the traveler life carries on. Chapter 11: School Days and Standing My Ground. School was never easy for me. From the first day, I could feel the difference between my life and the lives of the other kids. I was a traveler, and they knew it, sometimes before I even said a word. Names like Pikey, Jeepo, and Inbred were thrown at me like stones, words meant to cut deep and make me feel small. At first, it hurt. I would try to ignore it, but the laughter and whispers followed me from classroom to playground. It didn't matter if I was polite, if I kept to myself, or if I tried to explain. Being different was enough to make me a target. I think the way I was brought up kicked in almost automatically. In our family, you don't just let people disrespect you. You stand your ground. If someone laughed at you, made a fool of you, or tried to push you around, you didn't run. You defended yourself. I lost my temper too quickly at times, and it often led to fights. Afterward, no matter the reason, I was always the bad one in the eyes of teachers and staff. They didn't understand the lessons of the road, the way we were taught to protect our name and our family. They saw fists, not pride. They saw conflict, not the survival instinct that had been passed down through generations. But there were lessons hidden in every struggle. I learned patience, strategy, and when to stand firm, even if it meant standing alone. I learned that respect isn't given, it's earned, sometimes in small victories, sometimes in quiet resilience. And I learned to carry the lessons of my family with me, even in places that didn't understand them. School was a different kind of road, one without vans, bow tents, or campfires, but it still taught me things about life, strength, and pride. I may not have fit in, but I never lost who I was. The heart of the road, the lessons of my grandparents, and the pride in my family guided me every step of the way. Even now, I carry those lessons. I know that standing up for yourself, for your name, and for your family isn't about causing trouble. It's about holding on to who you are, no matter where the world tries to push you. Chapter 12: Family, Music, and Celebration. Traveler life wasn't all work and struggle. For every day on the road, there were evenings, weekends, and gatherings filled with laughter, music, and stories. moments that reminded me why family was at the heart of everything. I remember the big camps where cousins, aunts, uncles, and friends would all come together. Fires burned brightly, casting warm light over vans, tents, and trailers. The smell of food cooking over the flames mixed with the fresh air of the fields, and the sound of voices, laughter, and bagpipes made the nights feel alive. The bagpipes were everywhere. Someone would start a tune, and soon everyone was singing along. Old traveler songs, stories of the road, love, and life were passed from one generation to the next. I'd listen, spellbound, while my granda Bryce and other elders played about adventures I'd never lived but could imagine vividly through the music. Celebrations came in all shapes and sizes: birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, or just the simple joy of being together after a long journey. There was dancing, clapping, and endless teasing between cousins. Even the youngest children felt included, pulled into games, songs, and traditions. Food was always shared, sometimes simple, sometimes extravagant depending on where we were. But it didn't matter what was on the plate. What mattered was the connection. Sharing a meal, telling a story, laughing until your cheeks ached, that was the real feast. Even the quiet moments held meaning. Sitting by the fire, listening to the crackle of the flames, watching older relatives teach younger ones songs, dances, or skills, that was where culture was preserved. That's where the heart of the traveler life lived, in community, in pride, in joy, and in the bond between generations. Those nights taught me something I carry to this day. Life on the road wasn't just about survival, it was about connection. Family, music, and celebration gave strength for the hard times, and the memories of those nights still make me feel like I belong, no matter where I go. Chapter 13: Hunting Memories. Even though I never got to pearl fish or go hare coursing, my granda's stories kept them alive. I remember him describing the rush of dogs chasing a hare, the quiet patience of waiting by the river, and the smell of the morning mist over the fields. His eyes would light up, and his hands would move as if he were right there again. Sometimes we would pretend on our walks, imagining the paths they ran, the games they played, the competitions that tested their speed and skill. The stories weren't just entertainment, they were lessons: patience, strategy, and respect for the land, all part of what it meant to live the traveler way. Even today, I close my eyes and can almost hear the splash of water, the rush of the dogs, the call of the wind. I never had the chance to experience it fully, but in my imagination and in my heart, the adventure continues. Chapter 14: Roads Less Traveled. Some roads we traveled no longer exist. Campsites have been closed, fields have been fenced off, rivers diverted. Places where my granda and father walked freely are now locked, policed, or built over. It's hard to accept, knowing the paths they loved are gone. And yet, the roads live on in us. In memory, in stories, in laughter and music, in the way we teach the next generation. Even if the places themselves are gone, the spirit of the road, the freedom, the adventure, the lessons, survives. Every family gathering, every move to a new campsite, every shared meal keeps it alive. Chapter 15: Carrying the Legacy. The heart of my family isn't in the roads themselves, or the camps, or the bow tents. It's in the lessons we carry: respect, loyalty, pride, hard work, and love for each other. I carry it with me in every choice, every story I tell, every moment I share with my own children and cousins. Even if the world has changed, even if the camps are fewer and the freedoms restricted, the traveler life continues. Not in the laws or maps, but in our hearts, in our memories, and in the stories we pass on. That is our inheritance, that is our family, and that is what I will carry forever.